catfish.
No, but they look delicious.
They're like
Candy.
I like those. They're spicy a little bit.
Hi, Joy.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, moving on from Catherine's granola bar. Do you want to talk about Esperanza?
Sure. So the questions that we discuss are like, how does Esperanza and her mother escaping from the United States and going to the U.S., how does that make you see the plight in Mexican and Mexican Americans in the U.S.? What about immigration, and does this give you a window or mirror into the life of your students?
I think it definitely gives a window, because I've never had to face anything like that, and a lot of students whose parents came over here to try and get a better life for their kids, and so kind of similar to in the book, and so I don't know, it just gave like a good opportunity to look at that, and then for kids to see themselves and their families in literature.
And just the ways in which they actually like travel from Mexico to the U.S. Like Esperanza was like what in that wagon, like under floorboards, like in this tiny cramped space. And when we were in Mexico, we watched a documentary about immigration, and like some like children that are younger than like 15 years old will travel by themselves, like on the top of like trains and stuff, like super dangerous. Like they don't have a place to sleep, they don't have food, they don't have water, and so it's just like these could be our students in our classrooms, and that's just like, how do you, I don't know, provide that space for them where they feel safe? And when I feel like they're definitely going to be like scared and fearful when they first get here too. So, I guess like giving them that safe place in school.
Especially because the climate in the United States has been so angry lately.
Especially towards immigration.
And so it's like, give them a safe spot in your classroom at the very least.
I think this book does a good job of changing opinions too, kind of like their reasons for coming across illegally or legally too, like, and it showed like how poorly they're being mistreated too out of the camps, and like just made you feel sympathetic, and like I bet there's a ton of people who would change their opinions of illegal immigrants just from reading this book.
Yeah. And it's like, I always want to ask people, like, well, if your family was in that situation, or if you were in that situation, like, what would you do? Like, you would do everything in your power to, like, get out of that situation.
I hear on the news, like, people talking about immigration, like, people are coming here to take our jobs, or to, like, be involved in criminal activity, to, like, sell drugs, and, like, sure, there's probably, like, a very small, like, 1%, less than 1% of people who, like, are drug trafficking or whatever, but, like, the main reason is because they're escaping, or they're trying to find a better life. Like, there's some push that's making them over here. That's, like, economies from South and Central America, like, Latin America, like, there's, like, the violence, or the, like, not, like, the missed opportunity for everyone, like,
yeah, the turmoil in our country that, like, we helped start.
Yeah, and I took a Latino studies class last year, and I learned about, like, America's, like, hand in just, like, economic dependency and everything, and just, like, and then, like, hearing that history, and then hearing Americans now be like, why are they coming over? Like, I don't know, they just try to take our jobs. And we're like, well, we're not.
America has always been a country for immigrants. Like, that's what we're based upon. What is... Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Another thing about Esperanza Rising, though, that I sort of thought about is that, like, when I think about students who have immigrated with their families, I think of, like, their life here, like, since they got here. Like, I don't
like culture
always
shock
think...
and everything.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like, because that's the part of the student that I'm going to know. But, like, I don't think about, like, all the complexities. Like, if they lived 13 years, or, like, they lived 10 years in Mexico, like, that's their whole life. And, like, I don't know, I would want to know more about, like, what it was like there. I would want, like, you know, like...
And people don't see that, like, their parents, like, might have been, like, educated in some sort of, like, field. Like, they could be doctors and still immigrate over here, you know? So it's, like, people are coming here and we're treating them like they're scum, and that they aren't smart, that they like some people call Mexicans like dirty and stuff like that, and so it's just so sad to think that like they're people too, and they had lives before coming here. So it's like take a moment and stop and like try and learn about that before making any judgments.
That's still a huge problem too, that like some of the degrees they're earning, like going through the entire schooling process in their home countries, and they come here and we don't recognize their degrees, and then they have to take manual labor jobs. So understanding that like our perception of them as being dirty and low lives and working for like below minimum wage is just kind of like wrong, because back in their home country they were like rich, like Esperanza's family, you know, and it's just how dramatically it changes when they get here, and then that's what we see them as instead of.
Yeah, like I think there's a like I was thinking about that single story video, and I feel like a lot of people have a single story in Mexico, that it's like
So
people are like poor and uneducated and like need our help or whatever, but like they're a complex society with like middle class, like upper class, like there's poverty as well, but it's also like I don't know, I think it's a lot easier for the media just to like display it as like everyone is like impoverished here.
And I think that feeds into what like people think about immigration too, and how they feel and how.
Well, when they're watching the media and that's their only source of like information.
Yeah, everyone there is a drug lord. No.
No.
But
like if you're rich, you're a drug lord.
Yeah, my mom's friend, she came from Honduras with her family, and she her dad was a surgeon and her mom was like a lawyer, this lady, and they came over to the U.S. and she was in school, and like on her way over there, like in the train, she like read like War and Peace in English.
Oh wow.
And she was like 12. And then she like came to school, and like she said like the first time she was in school, she like went to the principal's office and they're like, "Hi, do you speak our language?" Like really slowly. She like that was her first experience like in America. Just like
Yeah.
you're
That's
insane.
intense.
And talking about our students too, I think it's this would be a really good book to have, but also just like books of all different types about different types of immigration, or like books of different like journeys that people go on. I think like that would be a really good like why people go on these journeys.
Yeah.
Like there's that book like Call It Courage or something. It's like a book about this boy who like goes on this trip, but like then like comparing like why did he go on this trip, like what caused him to go on it, and like what caused Esperanza to like go on this. Like,
It was really cool too because in the back, I think it
Had a bunch of questions.
it talked about the author's grandma and who this like book was based about, and like relating it to the Tunnel chapter 12, talking about nonfiction, historical nonfiction, like how books like these, like if they're like based off of like a true person and like their story,
It's more of an impact.
then there's more of an impact. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool that the author like brought her grandma into this book and other family members as well.
I think something you can also use from this book as like a lesson plan too is all of the Spanish words that are included. Like you can have your students like, you give them a chapter, they pick out all the Spanish words from that chapter and then find out their definitions, and then like as you're reading this as a class or something, you'd call in kids to like.
Yeah.
I mean, the translations are already like next to it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool because some of the words would have like the direct translation right next to it, and then other words you had to figure out in the paragraph. Like it would still state it, but it would be like further down.
And some of the words that were repeated didn't have like the word next to it later in the book.
Like grandmother.
And like campesina.
Abuelita? Is that
it's like a little grandma.
Yeah.
And campesina too stopped having like the translation next to it as it was used, because it was used like
Quite a bit.
yeah.
I want her grandma to be my grandma. Like weaving her hair into her blankets and stuff.
How did you guys feel about the whole blanket motif though? Like with the mountains and
Valleys.
I thought that was really cool actually.
It's like a symbol of life.
Yeah.
And
To us and to them.
and her story too. Like like overall. Like it was mountains and valleys. It was a blanket like crocheted by her family.
And then the last sentence that was repeated in the book.
It's okay to start over.
It's okay to start over. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I feel like that book lends itself really well to being like a read aloud book that you could like have
Really
Yeah.
great.
spark some
And
cool
I think it would
discussions.
be really cool for class discussions, yeah.
I wonder what age.
Probably upper elementary.
Fourth, fifth.
If you're reading it out loud, it could even be like maybe even third grade,
Yeah, I was thinking 34.
starting in that area. When they're really getting into like chapter books and
Yeah.
bigger books.
I was at Barnes and
Like
Nobles
novel.
the other day, and it was like the section said something like books that are inspiring kids, and this one was on it. I was like, oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
I get to read that this week.
My question about I have a couple, like my question, like a lot of the things that they talk about like in Mexico are like quinceañeras and like flan and I don't know, like different things
like the
that
references.
Her birthday thing where it wasn't a cake, it was the
yeah.
flan thing, like you said.
Yeah, it was just like I like question like if I don't know how to say this, if those are like overgeneralizing of like all of Mexican culture, because like I don't know, not all like places in Mexico have those same traditions, and like those to me are like the most famous traditions. Yeah, it's like America, when a lot of people think of Mexico, they're like piñatas, quinceañeras, Day of the Dead, like cowboy hats.
And so could it lead to more?
Kind of like a stereotype.
I think that's important though to point out when this book was written though too, in the time period that the book is set in. It's supposed to be in the 1930s,
Yeah.
so I think they still kept most of those traditions were actual like they were still alive and well.
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
like they're all like I'm not trying to be like
Yeah.
that's
I know,
not
I hear what
yeah.
you're saying though about like perpetuating stereotypes.
Like what are
of
the
their
small
culture.
cultural
Yeah.
things?
I felt for me, I totally see where you're coming from with that, and I totally appreciate that too. When I read this though, since after going to Mexico, I felt like when I read those things and stuff, like I could relate to them more because like I think the first time I read this, I would like read those and be like, oh, that's cool. Don't know anything about it. But like after like going and like experiencing some of their culture and stuff, like there were things in the book that I could relate to, and so that was really cool for me. But it definitely seems like it could be Americanized.
I think it's like two things. It's like one, I was like, I wonder if that's like tokenizing.
Yeah.
It was like different things, and the other, I was like, if I was a student from Mexico or who had like Mexican heritage, maybe I'd be like, oh, cool. Like they're talking about like my favorite dessert in a book I'm reading in class.
Yeah.
Like, so
Like, oh, I've had that.
yeah, like oh yeah, like I don't know, that's something my grandma said.
Like relating it back to their own experiences in that same way.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that they pointed out the significance of the quinceañera, and that meant like you were now a woman and you were able to marry. Whereas like nowadays, that's not necessarily like true. I'm guessing. Like I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have been to Mexico multiple times or once or.
Just this last summer. She's been more times than
Yeah.
Like do they
I
still
think
don't
it's-
assume that, right?
It's still, I think it's still just kind of like a coming of age
Yeah.
event, but it's not like now you
It's
should
less
get
centered
married.
around marriage.
Yeah, it's kind of like
And whereas that's what it was originally
Like,
purposed for.
yeah, it's
Kinda
like
gotcha.
you're coming of age, like you're a woman, but that doesn't mean that like you get married next
Yeah.
week.
But like in the 1930s, I think they still lived that way. That like once you turned 15, had your quinceañera, like then you could
Well,
like
yeah, like
start
in the
looking at
beginning, it's
marriages.
from
Like
those
yeah,
just, like-
she likes the Miguel guy.
she's like, who am I gonna marry?
Yeah, his mom was talking about like setting her up with some other rich person's son, and she was like, "No, I want."
Yeah.
When he came back with her grandma, guys,
I was like, oh,
crying
they're
in the
dead.
underground coffee house. I was
They're
like,
in love.
it's perfect. Oh,
He's
so
like, I
cute.
want to be Miguel.
You can bring my grandma.
Yeah, that was really cute. That was very thoughtful because she was all mad at him. She's like, oh, you stole my money.
Do we have it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was also thinking like one really important thing about this story is like that there are definitely windows for me. Like I was like I've never immigrated. Like I've never had a lot of these
Had to like
experiences.
drop your entire life and like start fresh.
You
Yeah.
go from rich to poor
Yeah.
so dramatically.
From riches to rags or whatever,
Yeah.
instead of vice versa.
But
Oh, maybe that's how I thought of that.
Is that on the back?
Yeah.
Subliminal messages.
But also, like the mirrors of like her character, like are something that I can really relate to. Like, I would be way worse at like assimilating to living in a migrant camp. I'd be like way more bratty.
Like all
probably.
the responsibilities that she like had to take on and stuff too. Like just sweeping was like foreign to her, you know. So
Yeah, and so like I think that was a huge to me like humanizing the experience made it something that I then was able to see immigration through a different light too.
She wasn't like a perfect angel or like
She was human.
Yeah, she had like
I like
she
wanted
made
to
mistakes.
strike with the strikers. But then I also saw the side where they're like, but then we'll lose our jobs and other people will come in, so it's like,
And that did
what do
happen
you
a
do
lot
in that
too.
situation?
it really
you
does
know?
stress like the impossible situation
Mhm.
that those people are in.
And when we were talking about like if we shared this in class or if like other people read this, I think they'd see that like after watching those videos of like Hernandez and like getting like killed and all of those things, like there's cops like kicking over water in the desert. Yeah, I was so mad. I feel like having like seeing the human side of the experience, they could see that like that's a human rights issue.
Mhm.
Like that's something that like that's an injustice.
I thought that the whole symbolism of like other side of the river and then how they were like on the same side of the river when they got to America, I thought that was really cool. I thought like children would be able to make that sort of
Yeah, it was
connection
a really
too.
The
good
symbolism was
metaphor to
simple,
use
yeah.
for racism.
Yeah, because they can like visualize like okay,
Physical river.
Esperanza's on this side of the river, like Miguel is over here. I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't like over my head, so like
Yeah.
It'd be easier to explain the symbolism to the students too, because they have that physical aspect that there's a literal river between.
yeah.
It's interesting too, I think like less obvious is the sexism, like or her mom has to deal with
Yeah.
her uncles.
That was awful.
Yeah, it's
I
like
w-
she
I
had to
know I
make
would-
this choice of like whether she was gonna like be a dependent, like
Follow all of the uncle's
be
orders
owned
and
by
stuff.
her husband's like
Yeah.
brother.
That's just so weird too. Like I don't know how I would feel like as Esperanza. Like
Yeah.
you're my uncle, but now you're trying to be like my stepdad or
It's
whatever.
kinda
Like that's just
slimy,
a
you know,
weird
like,
situation.
That's your
I wonder
dead
though if,
brother's
like-
wife, and you're trying to step in.
If I were in Esperanza's position at Esperanza's age, like would I have been like, Mom, like just marry him, like he'll take care of us at least, like
Like we'll get to stay here. Like it would make her life like it would be as similar to her old life.
But like
That's
she
awful.
said though that she was gonna, the uncle was gonna send her away to a boarding school.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's true.
It
I
wasn't
heard
a
about
life
that
she
part.
wanted.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Yeah, and he was just
Yeah.
gonna ignore her.
he said
completely.
that she needed like manners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When like she said one thing to
Yeah.
him that
And that
was
she's
that he didn't like.
Still
Yeah.
growing up.
So like the impossible situation.
I just like really thought about her mom a lot. Like
Mhm.
I want to like read the same story from her mom's perspective.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's like if the
that's a
author
good
wrote
one.
it from
Yeah.
her perspective.
Yeah, her mom was so strong, and like just like also being like for Esperanza to see that her mom was like way more than this like wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's it
So a
called.
lot of depth.
Yeah, she like would play with like little girls on the train or like talk
Mhm.
to like a fruit vendor or whatever. It's like
It was almost like in that part of the story where they're traveling to America and her mom was having these interactions with people that she never felt like she was in a position to speak to before. It's almost like she was relieved or something. Well, speaking of moms. I don't know, I just thought it was cool to like
she was like out of context and therefore like free to be able to
yeah, to be herself and make these connections with people that she wanted to make connections with. Like
I
don't
wonder
know.
if beforehand, because it mentioned how like before her mother would never talk to these people or whatever. I wonder if she had that urge to talk
But
to
because
them, but
it's, like-
couldn't,
Yeah,
or
that's
if
how,
she
how I
actually
took
like
it.
saw herself as like a better person.
I think it's probably like the social constructions.
Mhm.
Like when she's
Class.
that high up, she can't talk to people.
Yeah, she can't just
Or-
talk to these people like they're her peers
Yeah.
because everybody. I mean, they know they're not.
I'm glad
Yeah.
that she tried to keep Esperanza grounded though. Like, be thankful for what we do
Yeah.
have. Like, these people are doing us a tremendous
Yeah.
favor, and like they're helping us, and
yeah, that was
you know,
And
yeah.
the bit on the train with the hen lady too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With like just in like one small scene how much like responsibility and culture shock that Esperanza was experiencing from
Yeah.
like being nice to the peasants and like realizing that she's a peasant now too, and that whole like you can't talk to these people is just out the window. Like you have to now. You're a peasant. You're among them, and you need handouts as much as they do now.
Yeah.
Like even though this woman had nothing, she
She
still
gave.
gave the beggar money too or whatever outside the train when she got off. Like
I think that also, like, to me, I was thinking about, like, we talk about, like, classism in the United States, or, like, how we treat people of different socioeconomic statuses, but, like, that's not, like, a U.S. thing. And I think that's something interesting to think about with, like, students that come into our classrooms, too, with, like, coming from Mexico. Like, they're not just going to be from one status either, or have, like, one view of different people either, because they're from, like,
Different parts.
yeah. So I think
I think about
Different
that in my
traditions.
practicum for ELL 434. There's a student who speaks Mixteco, or a couple students who do.
Are you at Allen?
Yeah, and so it's like I didn't really even know about that language before this course.
Yeah,
which
I
is
don't
like
think I've ever heard.
super. This course is super eye-opening to how the students who speak Mixteco will not say that they do. They'll say they speak Spanish, but then when you listen to them speaking, you can tell that it's not Spanish.
Yeah, because, like, that language is lesser.
Yeah. And like Spanish is more socially acceptable.
Do we have any money questions?
I guess my money question was about, like, the different aspects of Mexico that were mentioned, and just
Were those tokenized?
yeah,
Yeah.
and like I think I'm really glad that those are celebrated, but also wondering if, like, how that does justice to the whole of Mexican culture.
Yeah, like how maybe books like this could shed more light on. Like,
Yeah. I don't know.
I thought it was so interesting that like the book was written in English, but Esperanza only knew Spanish. But then there were also like Spanish words. Like it was just like an interesting dynamic.
it got confusing at times for me, honestly.
Yeah. Because I'm like, I'm reading it as English, but she is technically speaking it as Spanish. But then there's also the little glimpses of like the Spanish words. I don't know. It was just
It's
really
more,
interesting.
maybe that's more like that's the glimpse into what's actually happening,
Mm.
and taking away like, oh, we're reading it in English.
Yeah.
And so here's kind of the glimpse of her.
Yeah, I definitely
world.
had a whole different view since the Spanish was incorporated in it too. It wasn't.
I bet there's a Spanish version of this book too with pieces and
Of,
words
like,
of
English.
English, like the exact opposite.
That'd be cool to find out.
Because children in Mexico probably read this book too, I'm guessing. Like to see different aspects of immigrating to America.
What do you guys think of the videos?
I get so emotional when I watch the ones about immigration.
I started watching it in the library, and I was like, I can't watch it.
Anymore.
Yeah. Because it's just so frustrating that
Especially when there's filmed evidence.
and like that we have all these people saying like immigration is horrible, these people need to go back, and then you realize, and then seeing a video like this, I would hope that their minds would be changed. But considering how, stick up where the sun doesn't shine, they are about it. It's like it feels like that they don't understand the humanity that
It's
It's being
like
raw.
baffling to me. It's like, how do you
is
treat
genuinely
people like
happening.
Yeah. And it, especially as like we're trusting these like higher authorities
And they're not doing
and they're not doing
I
their
think
job.
it's
Especially when you
as
see all of
simple
the
as, like, the one story thing.
yeah.
It's like we have no sympathy or empathy for them because of the one story view we have that
Yeah.
they're like dirty, willing to work for less, they're gonna be out behind Home Depot, like all of these like terrible things we think about them. We call them wetbacks, blah blah blah. Like we don't individually get to know each one of their stories, and I think if like somehow we did, we'd be like, okay, yeah, you should come here. Okay, yeah, you deserve to be here. Okay, yeah. It would change our mind if we like actually knew their stories.
Yeah, when I hear people's stories of immigration, I end up feeling like I don't deserve to be here.
Right?
Like I'm just like
It was
I
just given to
yeah,
you.
like I was just born here. Like I didn't have to work to be
Fight for it.
like in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
and
like, when I moved up here, I didn't, this was weird, but I didn't actually know that all of this was happening. And then my mom's high school students would say, like, I'm not here legally. I came with my family when I was 2. And one of her students actually did get deported at one point. And we actually fought to try and like get him out and bring him back so then he wouldn't get deported, but it ended up happening anyway. And it's just such an
And just the fact that like some of these people are getting deported without
and
like,
he's
every-
never
yeah.
been, like the only time he was in Mexico was when he was so little he can barely
Like,
remember.
it wasn't
like
his
this-
choice to be like, let's go.
Let's go.
you
Right.
know.
He was so young he was brought over with his
Yeah.
parents. And
That's
it
awful.
left his family. His family's still in town and he
What?
was dropped in the middle of Mexico.
How was he deported in his
Was he
family?
like
Was it?
18 or something?
Yeah, he was 18.
Because I'm guessing they had papers, but they didn't have papers.
And I think
for
one
their
of
son.
his younger siblings has papers because they were born here.
Yeah, see that?
But the entire family got split up and he was dropped. And I think he ended up staying with like some uncle or something. I don't know, I hadn't heard. I just heard he got sent
Yeah.
back.
We need immigration reform.
We do.
Badly.
We need
But that's a
people
different
who
discussion.
don't know what they're talking about in relation
We
to
need people like
immigration.
Donald Trump to get
Dude.
assassinated. I'm not even kidding.
Well, watch out.
It was just so sad
They're
to
all
me that
island,
like
obviously.
these border control people would treat these people with
It's like
such
they're not even
disrespect,
human.
and then it's like you saw all the rules that like they're supposed to abide by,
And they don't even abide by it.
and no, and not a
Ridiculous.
single one basically, especially with like the whole like sexual harassment and stuff as well, like the video of the mom filming in her car, and he's like, "Are you pregnant?" And she's like, "No," and he's like, "Do you want to be?" Ha ha ha. And
That would
I'm like,
never be okay if some guy
No.
snatched me in a bar and like
Never.
honestly, like punch him.
Yeah, but she felt like since like she was trying to get from place A to place B,
And also, he's a government worker.
exactly.
Like if
They're
some
just
if a
like
government worker said
abusing
that to me,
their
like I
power.
guess I don't know. I'm
Power,
just
yeah,
power
power.
gimmick. They're just abusing it.
And then like kicking over the water, and that one guy who his Facebook had like all these like derogatory things towards like immigration and stuff, and I was just like, dude, who are these people? Get them out.
How could you see? How could you like talk to people who are immigrating every day, like border patrol people, and then turn around and beat someone to death?
I don't
It's
think
like
they don't talk to them.
The guy is handcuffed on the ground, clearly not causing any harm to anybody, and they're tasing him like 5 times, and
And
like
they
he's
went in,
literally
like, to the last
screaming
one.
like help, like no and stuff, and everyone's like watching and filming this, and yet they just keep going. And why did that officer rip his pants off? Did you see that?
Humiliation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's sick.
awful. Like for those to be your last moments.
And like that's really publicized, but like I bet there's so many cases.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's-
that
for everyone
That people
publicized
don't
case,
see.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
probably thousands of unpublicized ones.
And then these families are left not knowing
What happened?
what happened.
Yeah, and then like they talk about the border control people, like yeah, they have to really it's a really violent, like dangerous job, like there's so many things, like wow, they're like really honorable, and I'm like
They're not on.
I don't know, like all the
I'm sure there are border
there
patrol
are
people that
honorable-
do their
they-
job,
there are
but
people that are honorable, I bet,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah,
the
ones who
danger
protect
to
the
me
community
is
border.
not the people coming in, it's the people that are stopping them from coming in. Like why is there what is their reason being there?
yeah.
So like, taking what we learned from the video and this book, like how could we form like a lesson plan, like surrounding immigration reform and like teaching the kids about how it is and not, and like telling them it's not how you think it is, and like
I would maybe just share people's stories like this, because you can't. I don't think you could explicitly say like immigration is good or immigration is bad. Like you
Yeah.
can't give them their like an opinion. So it's
education
like
versus
just
indoctrination.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like it's kind of tricky and kind of
And that's where it gets
slippery.
to the point of politics, and you
Yeah.
have to try and keep it as much out of your teaching as you can.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
you can
that would be a
teach
pretty good
empathy.
money question.
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
how do you go about teaching immigration without overstepping your boundaries in a political way and like
That's a good
I think sharing
question.
people's stories is a really good idea.
I think so too.
Like getting their background and the reasons why, and
Yeah.
And then that can allow students to form their own opinion.
yeah, just humanizing them and then
Yeah,
seeing the effect it has on your students and see what they get from it.
yeah.
Maybe
if they
make
were
them write
older,
out
like you
opinions
could have
and
a
stuff.
debate or something.
Yeah, or you could have them write a letter to the president as to why you either think
Yeah,
immigration is good or bad or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, and with the debate too, like I remember we did this in 6th grade about something. It was something like in history, but we were supposed to like have a side and then like research it, and so you can like research like what are some reasons why people would come to the United States, what are the reasons why people
So then you get both
like
sides.
for immigration reform,
Yeah.
you know, and then like you could say like, okay, well we do need to have some reform and like overpopulation or whatever, but we also like need to see why people are coming.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah,
might
that's
be
a
good.
good idea.
And that way, like,
Couple different
I wouldn't
avenues.
be like, this is my opinion and
Yeah.
that should happen.
Y'all should just agree.
Yeah. That was interesting too in chapter 12, how it talked about how like history books, like there's such a small chunk about like what actually happened versus you're not getting people's experiences and stories, and it's just like super one-sided. I was like,
And how it so varies from textbook to textbook.
like you could have 6 pages on Columbus in one textbook
textbook
and
and
then
then a
6
paragraph.
sentences and
On another.
Yeah.
And so it's so everyone's like,
How accurate. is it?
And nothing on slavery in America, like, it wasn't in any of my elementary textbooks.
Yeah, I was watching this video and it was about this mother whose son brought home a textbook, and it said something like the only part about slavery it mentioned, which it really beat around the bush when it came to slavery, was like African Americans like are here to work, and then that was the only sentence. And she's like, what about like literally our entire history, like, and it was the book was like about slavery or something like
America
that, and
is
that's like all
founded on
yeah.
slavery.
And so it was like super
crazy.
frustrating, and she's like, and this is I don't remember who the publisher was, but like she was kind of putting them on blast because she's like, these are allowed in our schools and it's not accurately portraying what actually happened.
It's just
yeah.
plain not accurate. Like, they're not working.
But then that scares me because then it's like when like the people that have gone through that and do have the stories and do have the experience, like they're starting to like not be here anymore, you know, like they're like dying and stuff. So it's like if books are the only way that we're like recording our history and like I know like verbally and stuff too, then it's like people in the future, like what are they gonna know about it?
There was,
You know?
I need to double check this, but there was totally something with Scholastic recently, and they published a book, and I'll read the description because it was just, they ended up pulling it from shelves because it depicted slavery as like a good thing.
Oh my gosh.
Scholastic.
Yeah, Scholastic for like the book fairs and all that sort of stuff. And
Literally
it,
like the provider
It's
of
just a
every book.
scholastic book.
let's see if I can find it.
Because it's like who chooses like whether these books are
Yeah, and it's hard too, like big publishing companies like are able then to like mass produce it, like a book like this. Like that way, like if
it's
can
all
get
over the
schools,
shelves at Barnes and Noble
Yeah,
and,
and, like,
book
the-
fairs, I'm assuming. And
they can print it in different languages. Like they have the money to do that, but then they also are a big money generating company that like doesn't care.
they have a lot of power
sometimes.
too. Like
yeah.
And there was enough backlash that they took it off the shelves, but like this it said, this was from Amazon, oh how George Washington loves his cake, and oh how he depends on Hercules, his head chef, to make it for him. A description of the book says on Amazon, Hercules the slave takes great pride in baking the president's cake, but this year there's one problem, they're out of sugar. And that's the book. Like depicting it as like a happy thing, and he loves working for George Washington.
wow.
And then it's like, those are, I mean,
Yeah, it's like,
Books that our children are reading.
yeah, like George Washington
or could read.
owned slaves.
What do you guys think about crossing Buck? Cheeto?
I really liked it.
I liked it too.
Yeah.
I
What do
thought
you like
it was
about
like really. To me, it felt like spiritual in
Yeah.
a way, and I like reading the description. Then at the end of the book, and knowing that it was is an oral tradition,
That was really cool
Narrative
getting that
first,
little
yeah.
From a
like
song.
at the
and
end.
how like people of the Choctaw Nation generally, I don't want to like miss. Yeah, but I think it said that like they generally will take like spoken word more.
Yeah, I
seriously,
read
like
that
they,
too.
You know,
Versus like
they're
written.
written printed.
Yeah.
Which is just like very
That's really cool.
opposite from our culture.
Yeah.
Like if it's printed, we take it as fact.
Because words
It's
can like
scary.
dissolve so quickly, but as soon as they're like on a piece of paper, like we can
Mhm.
like dissect them and whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it like showed two different perspectives. Like we're both children from like different marginalized groups, and like then at the end it even like reinforced the idea of like how different people tell the same story differently because they're like, you know, the Choctaws tell it this way, like Black Americans tell it this way, and white Americans tell it too. Like,
Yeah, I liked seeing both sides. That was really cool.
but it fits so naturally. Like, I don't know.
And it was kind of interesting that you mentioned that it was spiritual, also because of like the end, like they were like angels or whatever.
Did you guys notice the similarities with Esperanza Rising though, with the two sides of the river?
Yeah, that was interesting.
So true. I didn't actually make the connection.
And there's also a Mexican proverb that was in that book. I don't remember where it was. Do you guys remember like which one I'm talking about?
In Esperanza.
Yeah, it had something to do with the rich help the rich, but the something.
Poor help
but
the
the
poor,
poor
or
help
something like
the poorer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people have less
I
than them.
remember that.
And that,
Oh, it
that's
was
very,
when
that's another
the
like
head
recurring
lady
theme.
gave
Yeah. Yeah,
she gave so
very-
many money
right after
and then
that.
she
Yeah.
like, had 8
Yeah.
kids.
And that's a similar theme in Bach Cheeto. I feel like these Indians are helping the slaves, like even though they're both going to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
You know, they're just risking it all because it's the humanitarian thing to do. Like they need help, and you know, so they help them out.
Could you imagine just one day, like, oh, by the way, like your mom was sold?
You're never gonna see her again.
Like,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't.
No, that's awful.
What did you guys think at the end when they were invisible? What did you think about that?
I was a little bit honestly confused by that. Like, how,
Yeah.
like for me, I was wondering like how can like this whole entire group like walk past these?
It made sense the first time they were invisible when they were walking past the people on the porch
Mm-hmm.
because like they wouldn't know. But like
If there's literally guards like standing there
Yeah.
like, looking for people, that I like I wasn't
That
really
was-
sure how to interpret that almost. What did
Yeah.
you? How did you guys interpret that?
I struggled with it also. I
Yeah.
was like, it had like a spiritual element to the book, and like it was like mystical and whatnot. But yeah, in terms of like a logical storyline progression, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I would go about teaching it.
Same, because it's kind of like because it definitely felt more spiritual. So I was wondering if it was like a divine intervention.
yeah, that's what I
Sort of like
kind
this
of
is
accepted
what
it
is
as.
happening.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah, I think you'd also have to take a look at the Choctaw people and their religion, if you can even call it that, like just their spiritual beliefs. And, like, yeah, maybe some figure for their belief system did shelter them and protect them. But I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure because they did like the little riverside
Candles.
ceremony type thing. So I'm not sure if that kind of plays a role into
Yeah.
their
I
belief
was thinking
system.
two things. Like one, maybe they were actually invisible and walking, and like that was like when they when two marginalized groups like came together and like banded together, they had like new strength.
Okay.
Or
I like that.
or that like these people didn't see them as human, and so then therefore they were like invisible to them. Like they were just people they could sell. They were like animals. They
Yeah.
were property. But I think one thing I really liked about the book is that I feel like stories of like marginalized identities are often like very put in categories. Like this is like an African American story of like rising up. This is a like story about like from Mexico, from Japan, or whatever. Like things are very segregated, and so like seeing one where it's like, wait, like
There's two different groups.
Doesn't belong to either.
yeah, like
Totally.
yeah, there's definitely contrast, but there's like so many things that are parallel in their lives and their stories, and like I think if kids could see that too, then maybe they'd be able to see that like they have things in common with other people, like they're not as different either.
I liked that both sides showed like a strong sense of community, like how the African Americans would like meet together for like church or whatever, and I don't know, that tribe as well.
I was gonna say something.
Yeah, it's tough because then you have something in your head.
I know. I see. Oh, I was thinking about. I was thinking. You said like the Choctaw people's religious tradition. You brought that up, and that made me think of something I thought about while I was reading it, which is like, when the slaves and the white men who were chasing them saw the Choctaw women as angels. I thought that was really interesting because that's a very like. it's Christianity or
Yeah.
you know, it's like a Western tradition to like see an angel, and I don't know, just the way that played such a role in the story because they were like in awe.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
They
you know?
they stopped chasing them because
Yeah,
they
they
were
didn't
like.
shoot.
I think they thought they were angels for two reasons. Like it was kind of twofold. Like one, the way they were dressed. Like they were dressed in white, holding
Standing on
candles,
water.
kind of just seemingly like
Yeah, I
pure
probably.
mystic. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
they
totally.
like from their point of view, they were walking on water too.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of like
Didn't have
But it's
freaked
their
out in the sense that they were like,
perception
oh,
of
what's going on
what's
here?
happening.
Those
Yeah.
are angels. They're walking on water.
So Joy really wants us to focus on like evaluating these books.
Yeah, like the
so
question.
then like, I don't know, like how would you evaluate this book? Like I thought that I would like definitely give the author like a lot of credit,
Yeah.
just
And
based
the
off of like
illustrator.
the little
Yeah.
section in the back that
Yeah.
like gives information about
Mhm.
them. Like I almost wish that more books
Had
did
that
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, and I think definitely to build on that, like his experiences and like saying that it's like this isn't just like a story that like a white man wrote about something that like he heard of once. Like this is something that's very important
Yeah.
to him and he
And
wanted
he
to
had
share.
Choctaw ancestry and like interviewed elders who like were carrying that oral tradition.
Yeah.
And he's known as a storyteller
Mhm.
for them too.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I looked him up
Can't
too
get much
after.
better than that.
Yeah, I'm like pretty.
So in both books, both of the authors have like really good credibility for
Yeah,
their
okay.
topics, because
Mhm.
like for Esperanza Rising too, like that is her grandmother or great grandmother.
Grandmother.
Yeah, her grandmother. So like she knows best. Like there's
Yeah.
probably nobody who could have written that book better than her.
Yeah.
So like evaluate it in that sense that it's like authentic and like it checks. You can
It's
check
not just
things
some
off the
make
list.
believe. Like
Yeah.
like if I wrote that book.
There's
you know.
some like question to your
Yeah.
authenticity of the facts and like the way things are. But if you're actually related, then
Yeah.
You're
He's
gonna
probably
take
been
that
told the
as truth.
story.
Yeah.
I think too, like having a book told from a different side or like giving like historical meaning to something that I didn't really think about before. So like in the Great Depression, what I learned is I didn't learn anything really about like worker strikes.
What I learned is I didn't really learn.
What I learned is
just
nothing.
learned that it just really stunk.
Yeah, I learned about the Dust Bowl a little bit.
I
and,
remember Hoovervilles too, or
Yeah.
what they were called.
Yeah, but I didn't learn about like immigration during that time, and
Oh no.
and also like in my Latino studies class we talked about like just the history too of like immigration reform and how like every time our economy is low, our immigration reform gets really strict again, and then when we are like booming again, like the flux to how we let people in is very related to like how our country's doing economically.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's interesting, and that's also like that gave me a lot more credibility to this book, more credibility to me because there's like all of this like worker strikes and all these things I'd never even read about
Yeah.
before. Like I've heard about like Cesar Chavez, but like
Yeah.
that was like the only like person I knew of like part.
And like there's a part in that book too where they were talking about the camp and how when they first got there, the cousins, Isabel I think was the one who was telling like this is how the camp is, these are rules, this is how it works. She explained like very briefly that they kept the Japanese workers separate, the Filipinos workers
It was very
separate,
clear.
and that they weren't allowed to like mingle and hang out with each other. And I think like that was only one page in the book, but I think like there's an entire like lesson plan you can derive from that.
Yeah, there's a story there, and especially the
I went
other
right
time
over it.
I mentioned that was the pool.
The pool, and they only got to
The
Oh,
order
right.
in which they're
the
allowed
day
to,
before
yeah.
it gets cleaned or whatever.
That was like
Yeah, and then
striking.
towards the end, the Oklahoma settlers had like a new camp, and they had like a pool to themselves too, and hot water and whatnot.
I feel like Esperanza learned a lot of life lessons that she wouldn't have learned if she still lived in Mexico. Like the way she was living, just like when it comes to like empathy and just like putting yourself in other people's shoes and you know things like that. It's just like, oh, also I really wish that I could have met her father because I remember the first time I read this book I was younger and I literally laid on the ground and tried to like hear the, hear the heartbeat. I didn't hear anything though, so I was a little sad.
I had a dream the other night that I like did that that.
Did you? Yeah, I want to try it again.
Woke
I
up
thought
on
it
my
was
floor.
her heartbeat she was hearing.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh,
When
that's-
you press your ear super hard, it
Yeah.
amplifies your heartbeat.
Okay. Very cool.
So then
Yeah.
when she came to America, she stopped being able to hear her own heart.
Yeah, no, that's why
I'm
that
not
didn't
sure.
really care.
But like,
but
I don't know, that's interesting.
I'm wondering if that's
Also,
more
did she
symbolic.
have a seizure? What, like when, like she came
She-
over and like then she like rose up and
Oh,
Miguel came
yeah.
over and
yeah,
he's like, "Are
she
you
had
okay?"
like an out of body experience where
Yeah.
she like kind of
Okay.
fainted slash I don't know.
She got possessed real quick.
Yeah,
Just like 30
just-
seconds.
Oh.
I want like a second story based on like her and Miguel.
I know, like,
Yeah,
what
what
happened here?
Nothing happens actually.
Yeah,
That's a-
part ways. He
that's a-
gets like a
That's a Nicholas Sparks book right
he
there.
gets like a train job.
No, it'd be set in like, aren't they always set in like North Carolina?
Yeah.
Somebody always has cancer.
Do you guys think that
Somebody's dying.
And someone's always gonna die, and it's always white couples.
Do you guys think that he would find like a job working on motors and stuff, or do you think he would stay where he's at?
Well, knowing how it actually happened, because this happened in the 1930s, there was no mobility. He probably would have kept working on the field until he died, or went back to Mexico. Just realistically.
Also, I think this is really topical too. Like, I'm thinking about refugees right now, and like refugee camps like around the world, and like in Europe as well, like and their conditions and why they're fleeing too. Like, oh, I have to look up like just the number.
Like open people's eyes up to it because some people have been extremely close-minded about it, very angry and like not understanding just why all these people are
Like,
fleeing.
there's a reason they're coming.
There's a reason why, like, and people aren't understanding that they're not taking.
If their
into
situation
stand.
back home isn't worse than it is here, like
It's because it's hard to visualize, and you can't really see it and experience it from like a
And it's
Third person,
happening in European countries, which are a lot smaller and like have less capacity to actually really actually take in these people. And I think it puts more responsibility on countries like America and Canada to accept
Canada's
people.
taken in a bunch, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like Canada's doing great. Jay Inslee came out with a really
He came out with
awesome
such a nice letter.
statement about it.
did you find that?
So since January 1st, 67,000 refugees have come to Europe. That's like of this year. Have come to Europe just from like over the water. Wow. And like
that whole
that's
situation.
and like
Oh my
that's
God, you
in
see the water,
that's like in the dead
boats
of
and
winter, and a lot of those people are going to Germany and like Sweden,
Where are they leaving from?
like Syria,
Okay, that's what I
Afghanistan.
thought.
I was watching. You guys know that cooking show Chopped?
Yes.
There was a woman on there who was telling like a brief little glimpse of her story, but literally her mom stuck her as an 8-year-old and her 4-year-old sister on a raft and pushed them from, I don't remember where, it was like Asia, and like pushed them into the water, and eventually they made it to America.
What?
Yeah.
No.
She was responsible for her like 4-year-old sister as like an 8-year-old girl like on a raft to America.
Wow.
What?
They
Yeah.
probably got picked up by
Well,
the Navy or
yeah.
somebody.
Not from
That's-
Asia.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I was like, I don't know, but I was just like,
But it is that kind of thing that's happening where like
Yeah.
these people who
like
were
literally
so
desperate
vulnerable,
measures.
yeah, and
you know?
desperate,
How would you teach about
and people are
refugees in
taking
schools?
advantage of them.
When I was mentoring last quarter, actually, like the class I was mentoring for, they were doing a refugee unit, and it was all about Syria. And she did a really good job of like presenting.
What
like,
grade?
it was 7th grade,
Information.
but
Okay.
they were like, she did a really good job of giving them articles with like first-person accounts of
Yeah.
why they were leaving Syria and how they completely didn't agree with
Cool.
the violence and whatnot. And then there was another huge article that she handed out where there's a small island in the Mediterranean where they like, because they very similar, they'll just hop on rafts and get pushed out into the Mediterranean, and hopefully they'll hit like Spain or somewhere, the land that's not Syria. And so this like little small island is like the Ellis Island for Europe and Syrian immigrants. Like they'll come to this small island, it's off Italy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And she like has facilities for them and takes them in and then like gets them their proper papers and then puts them in France, and then France sends them out, or Italy sends them out.
That
And
seems
I just-
complicated.
It was like it worked really well with the kids because this was like one mayor of one tiny island making a huge difference and going out of her way to
make sure that
use
these
her
people get-
economy's money for her own little like Coast Guard search and rescue teams that she was like implementing
Yeah.
and like saved. She was literally made it her like life's work. She's saving refugees right now. That's what she's doing.
And because something else that's happening is like they're not just getting on any rafts. Like it's like they're paying people a lot of money for the passage, and these people who are getting paid to do this are totally taking advantage and just like cramming these people onto really unsafe watercrafts, and so many people are drowning
Yeah,
like
they deal
off
with
the
a
coast
lot
of
of dead
Italy.
bodies too.
Yeah.
Like dead bodies will just wash up onto their shore, and they'll go look in their pockets, and they have nothing in their pockets, and they just don't know where they came from or who they are,
Like the
And then
3-year-old
they-
boy.
and then they just bury them with no name on their grave.
Yeah, and then the families don't know what actually
Yeah.
What happened to them?
are they there?
So
are they
this
alive?
teacher did a really good job of just forming a lesson plan around like getting sympathy and deriving empathy from the students for like seeing the other side of it and not having
That's
the
awesome.
single story that
Yeah. And seeing that
they're
person
bringing
can make
weapons and
those
bombs to
changes.
wherever they're going. You know.
Yeah,
And,
what I would do is, I think I would like show a clip, like some news clips too, and be like, okay, this is like our side.
yeah,
this is
is
what we're
how we
being
look at
told,
it.
and like, all right, here are some actual
Yes.
stories. Yeah. Is there anything else? Books.
I think we're
I think we talked about
Got
it. I think, yeah. Unless there's anything that anyone's dying to talk about.
Nah.
Just
So do we have any other money questions?
I think we're good on money questions. Unless, yeah.
I will write them out.
good stuff.
Got it.
Thank you.
Hi, Joy.
Hi, Joy.
Can you go back this time?